handles his business extremely seriously. He cares about winning. He cares about us succeeding as a team. And as me and his relationship grows, I can't wait, to see where our relationship can go, but also how much he can drive that unit.
Hello, everybody. That's Cade McNamara on the In the Trenches pod talking about his new center, Aluskin Ololuwatimi. Ololuwatimi, Big O, whatever you want to call him, a center's best friend, the most important part of the offensive line. There he is, Cade McNamara, talking about him. All right, welcome in and happy first day of summer. Dennis Fithian joined by Jim Scarcelli, and you're not getting it wrong. Usually Scar's joining us on Thursdays, but today a special edition of Jim Scarcelli because he's got some things going on Thursday. Happy first day of summer, Scar.
Yeah, it's a hot one out there today. I just got to say this about McNamara. I just love the way he sounds, the way he talks. He's always about the other guy, his teammates. He's humble. He's confident. I just would love to play with a guy like that, coach a guy like that. But again, that's one of them things we take for granted I think Coach Harbaugh does a good job of instilling, that kind of message into his players.
Yeah, and a little bit of a tease. You're going to be talking about Jim Harbaugh and some of the things that are not getting talked about enough about the coach, and that is one of them. Now, if you take everything that Cade McNamara has ever said, and you take everything that J.J. McCarthy has ever said, and you listen and you scrutinize each and every sentence and on everything, every situation, these guys, they couldn't be any more team than they are. And that's saying something, and I know a lot of team guys and all that, but these guys in the age of the transfer portal, you just couldn't ask for anything more, really.
Yeah, we as a high school coach, we used to, I used to read what the kids would say. I allowed them to talk to reporters and this and that, and then you would read and hear the things the players would say, and that's when we really knew we had a good thing going because they were just repeating the things we were trying to instill in them. So, yeah, that's a really good sign that they're not talking crazy and disrespecting the opponent. I don't like that kind of talk, and I don't think Jim, promotes that. You can see the way they talk. I just love it.
Yeah, I remember Matt Stafford playing for the Lions and millions of things that he said. Every single thing I was always in tune with. I'm like, man, this guy is a team guy. And this guy is a winner. It wasn't until, 7-8 years in, there was one thing that, he was asked about whether he was going to go and see a throwing coach. I think it was Tom House. And he said, he was basically like, no, I don't know. I'm going to keep doing what, I know what I'm doing. Basically he was saying he didn't need a throwing coach. And I was like, whoa, there's the first thing out of 7 or 8 years that Matt Stafford's ever said that I thought maybe a little bit, he could have handled it a little bit better. He ended up going and the following year and dealt and worked with the throwing coach. And I think it helped him, and after that he was like, yeah, this guy's great. So, even the thing that he said, he went back and, ended up doing. And, it's rare, especially the guys that talk a lot. I know for people that really followed Stafford's career when he was in Detroit, people made fun of him a little bit because he said, a lot, like, I don't know, and so people got on him a little bit. But if you listen to what he was saying, he was always a team first guy.
Hey, any leader, politics, business, any leader, coach, every word is scrutinized. And when you're when you're a head coach or a quarterback, and you got to, every word can matter. And you can irritate the wrong guy or sound like a me guy or disrespect an opponent, when you really didn't mean to. So you got to be smart. And again, I watched Coach Schembechler for so long. I used to watch him whenever he was asked a question by the media, he would always pause for a couple, 3-5 seconds before he answered. He never just blurted something out. He always, let it digest because he knew how important, things he said were. to his players, or, didn't want to embarrass a player or whatever. So that, that's what I like seeing, the things our players normally say good things.
Yeah, if you want to say some good things, you can in a variety of ways. You can type in the instant feedback, which is very popular. We answer that in real time. Of course, got to be watching us or listening to us live. There is also the ability to call in. The number is on the screen. If you're listening to one of the podcasts, 810-666-1574, 810-666-1574. So you got that going. As far as today, we will get to that in just a moment. I do want to remind everybody, it is the first day of summer, and summertime with the Maize and Blue is the way to go. So why don't you join the Maize and Blue today? You want to know more? You want to know everything about Michigan? Well, go to rivals.com and subscribe to Maize and Blue Review. Also, mention the podcast. They are everywhere you find them, and we're all over social media as well. You see AJ Henning at the stadium, along with Jalen Harrell and Mike Morris flashing their championship rings. I believe this was this past Sunday. That's on the Maize and Blue Review TikTok page. And Scar, you didn't join us yesterday, but I put a picture up of some rings. And John Colasar, the great Michigan wideout, wore number 40. His son, Caden Colasar, he's been a standout on special teams. Caden got his ring, and then you see on the left and the right some championship rings from John, along with what's that on his pinky? The Michigan ring, right? What do we look at?
That's the M ring.
M ring, all right.
And then the other two smaller ones are Big Ten championship rings. And then that's obviously the big one. You can see the direction, the direction these schools are going. A little more money. It's just about gaudiness, man, and it matters. It affects recruiting. And you will see, I'm going to tell you, now that they got the rings, when a kid goes on a recruiting trips and Coach Harbaugh and all them coaches are sporting the big old rock, it matters. It'll be one of many things that affects recruiting. But yeah, that's what you see there. The M ring, the two smaller ones are Big Ten championship rings, and then the new one that's his son's ring.
Well, Scar, you played at Michigan from 81 to 85 at outside linebacker. So that spans some seasons that Michigan would have collected a championship ring. Did you ever get one? What did you do with it?
No, I was a part of one championship team. I was on I just missed my freshman year. They just won. Bo won his first one the year before. My sophomore year, we won the Big Ten championship and went out and lost the Rose Bowl. But I was only on one, 5 years. So the year after they won another one, the year before I got there, they won another one. But I've got 3 rings. I'm proud of all of them. This is my high school state championship ring, Warren Woods High School.
All right.
1978, Warren Woods High School champion.
You guys won the state championship?
Up at the Silverdome. I was a sophomore on that team. We won the first one in Macomb County, beat Catholic Central, Grand Rapids Catholic Central.
Was that Class A? Like, I went to Livonia.
Class B.
Okay, the first year I think they started doing it was 76, because Franklin won the first one.
That's right, yeah. We were 78, was maybe the 3rd or 4th year.
All right.
That's a great memory. It means something different. Those are high school guys you win in your community. We all lived in a square box, a couple mile community. There was
and you won it all. I didn't know that. That's good stuff. What else?
Yeah, you didn't have school of choice or none of that stuff then. These were all buddies, you guys you went to kindergarten with, you grew up with. So that has a certain kind of meaning. And here's my Big Ten championship ring. I was just a sophomore.
To the camera. Let me take a look at that one. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. Now we're taking a look at that. Was Colasar on that team? That looked a lot like his ring.
That is I don't think he was there then.
Okay.
That's my sophomore year. I don't think he was there then. And, I was a player on that team. I was a member, and it means a lot. But the ring that means the most to me, and every guy might have a different opinion. Michigan guys will have different opinions, but this is the M ring that John had on his finger.
Yeah.
You get that ring when you finish and do 4 years. Normally that was the procedure. You did 4 years, you got an M ring. And it just indicated that you survived it. It doesn't indicate you graduated, but you did 4 years with the Michigan football program. That used to be the standard. I don't know if it still is. I would hope it still is, but that ring to me means more than probably any of these rings, just because the demands of college football and how difficult it was. But every guy will have a different opinion. You talk to Colasar, he might have a different opinion about it, but that means a lot to me just from how difficult I know that it was to to finish and go through the grind of being a student and a college athlete. It's tough.
I love it. It is good stuff. And you mentioned it earlier, and let's go ahead and put it up on the screen here. Some of the things that we're going to get to today, what Jim Harbaugh is doing that nobody's talking about. And for that, we're going to go to Jim Scarcelli, who's going to talk about this a little bit. This is how we're going to kick it off. Scar, what are some things that Harbaugh is doing here that nobody's talking about?
Sometimes when you look at a program and you don't hear about certain things or this, that, whatever, you just take it for granted. But I think that the number, well, I'm going to list a couple, but one of the most important ones is the fact that he's been able to keep McNamara and J.J. McCarthy on this roster. How many guys would be able to do that with the age of the transfer, to be able to keep two good ones like that on your roster, in your program? And I think that says a lot. There's a skill to that. How do you keep guys happy? It would have been very easy for JJ. I'm sure his phone was ringing off the hook. If a guy like JJ McCarthy, but he's sticking with it. That gives us great depth. We have two solid quarterbacks. We are in a great position with the quarterback position. And that's a skill I think we got to give to our head coach. The second one I have, Denny, is to keep our big offensive coordinator, Coach Moore. I think he was a marketable guy, and I think to keep him on the staff without losing him is something, you just take it for granted that a guy like that would have packed his bags. But go ahead and comment on those first two. Those are my first two on my list.
Yeah, I think that I haven't heard many people talking about Michigan keeping both guys on staff, but I'm with you on that. Speaking of my phone ringing off the hook, mine's going crazy here. I got Slack from the guys at Maize and Blue Review, and for some reason, people are texting me off the hook. Yeah, so maybe, I don't know if you would say that it's lucky. It would have been interesting to see if they would be in the same situation if J.J. McCarthy was fully healthy and able to throw and compete in spring ball, but we know that he wasn't, and whatever, here they are, and keeping both of them. When you see other teams losing guys, Penn State last year, they lost, Slovis to Kentucky. They didn't have a backup quarterback. It hurt them at Iowa, or they could have been, they could have had a better season than they did. And all through, it is really hard to keep, it's hard to keep one quarterback. Now you're talking about keeping two guys. So yeah, it is, the quarterback room is strong, and that's huge.
Yeah, the next one on my list I think is important. I think it helps recruiting. I think the trips that Michigan takes, we haven't had it for COVID the last couple of years. This year they're going on the state of Michigan. They probably already finished it, but I think those things matter. I think it helps recruiting. It's one of many things. Again, I talk about recruiting. It's one of many, many things that a kid and his parents are going to evaluate. And I think that's a good thing that we're doing. No one else is doing it. The trips, Rome, South Africa, France, the state of Michigan. I think bringing in Jesse Minter is big. I think it's a good thing. I think he did it. I think we're going to hit the jackpot again with Minter, just like we did with McDonald. And I think that's a big thing. It's going to pay off for our defense. And you heard it here first. That Minter decision was huge, and it's good. And we're going to be really good on defense again. I really like I talked about Denard Robinson, Biff Poggi, and Freddie Jackson on our staff now. Those guys are going to be factors in recruiting. Again, I think the Michigan people might be we're getting a little impatient. We haven't really been, we don't have some guys signed right now, but I think it's going to pay off with the team of assistant coaches and analysts that are on staff. They're going to really help us recruit. But I think we have a great staff in general in there. Go ahead, talk. You can comment on some of those things I mentioned there, Danny.
Yeah, I think all that stuff you're talking about is good. And like, I don't know, trying to weigh other top 25 team staff and everything, but Fred Jackson, his experience speaks for itself. Pochi, his East Coast connections, his name's always popping up. And Denard Robinson, he is, he's a household name. Everybody wanted to be shoelace across the country. So, and he's a real personable guy. I've actually never met him myself in person. I watched his, I watched him play at Michigan, obviously, but then he had his Big Ten, he was at the Big Ten luncheon. He was the speaker for the conference, and, he just let it all hang out there. Emotional, awesome speech. One of those things where, you take all the money, you take everything, and you just watch different players at times go up there and speak. And it's what it's all about, man. Listening to Denard Robinson talk about what Michigan meant to him and the team and everything else. I just can't get enough of that. So I'm with you. And, Harbaugh, before name, image, and likeness, I always wondered what he was going to do to, to get the advantage or try to get the advantage if he wasn't going to go and go into the gray areas and, pay players and everything else. And, the signing with the Stars, I thought was an A+. He got criticized a little bit about taking everybody across the world. And people are like, they're not getting any recruits for guys that are coming in. But I think, team building, you don't know. I told people that if Michigan did win it, they were going to point to the team building that they had in France or Italy. And, those kind of things matter. You hear that sometimes from, especially in baseball with some younger players where they go on the road, they talk about that's where we got together. I was anticipating that. And I don't even know if Harbaugh thought about this part, but when it comes to donors and parents and other people, everybody loves football, but all those people that went on those trips and everything, and you would see them hanging out, looking over South Africa, looking over the ocean and everything, or sitting on a street in Paris, with having coffee with Don Brown. I mean, those things went a million miles, for Michigan donors and I think the parents and everything, and just how much support they were giving Jim Harbaugh. I thought that was some unintended consequences. I don't even know if he thought he was going to do that, but I think why not? You could still get everything done with practice, and if everything else is equal, travel in the country, travel in the world. That sounds pretty good to me. It sounded like it was a smart move. I'm surprised other teams it costs a little money. I'm surprised other teams weren't able to do it.
Well, they just don't think it's a priority. I know if someone came into my living room and this everything was all equal, and one school is saying, we're going to take your trip to around the world because we believe that we want to give them a well-rounded education about seeing other cultures. My parents would have been receptive to that. They would have said, that's pretty good. This guy doesn't want to just, he's not just a football player. He's we want to round him out, give him a whole lot of experiences. A couple other things I got on my list that we don't talk about, and I want to knock on wood because we've been pretty good here. We haven't had guys get in trouble with the law and dumb fights and stupid things, and I want to knock on wood. Those things are not by accident. I think great leaders, great coaches find a way to instill that in their players. To do the right thing on campus, do the right thing outside of the football building and in classroom. And you don't have them all day long. And I think Jim's done a pretty good job with that. Another thing, just people might not be aware of this guy that I played with, Clay Miller, is a big organizer of a group that former players that help former players that help the recent graduates find jobs. I know it's got to be a small factor in recruiting. I got to believe that our coaches are utilizing it and informing the recruits of that. I just want to throw that out there. Teammate of mine, teammate of Jim's also is the ringleader of that thing for former players that are trying to help out recent grads. But again on that NIL thing, I didn't think about this, and it is the ramifications, Danny, of NIL and acting right on campus. A kid acts like an idiot now, it's going to have impact on his financial ability, his ability to make money. And I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but I thought about it. I'm like, this is going to be a factor in keeping guys on the straight and narrow path of doing the right thing, because it can cost them money now. You act like a fool on campus and get in fights and get in trouble with the law. Not only you compromising your chance to stay with a program, but you're going to, they might cut your funding. So that's all I had on my list. Jim's done a great job of keeping our guys out of trouble, and just little things that I think he's done a good job with.
Yeah, great point. Something that it's the first time that I heard anybody bring it up, but you're right. I mean, how many times do you see in professional sports with somebody get in trouble and they're like, oh yeah, they're going to yank his endorsements, and it's going to happen at the college level. If you're, a player that is getting whatever kind of money from a car dealership and you go out there and run afoul of the law, they're not going to keep that deal with you. There's language in those contracts that they can avoid it, if you go out there and you do something stupid. So it's a good point. Now, whether or not it, keeps people on the straight and narrow or not, we'll see, but it is a good point, something that it should be, if it's not being hammered home to potential players that are on the team, like, hey, we don't want anybody making any headlines here in the off season, and you definitely don't want to. It's going to affect your back pocket, a pocketbook. Let's go.
Hey, Denny, I played there, and I saw guys that were starters, freshmen, starters, young guys, starters, doing great in school and doing great football-wise, and then they go out and do something stupid. Next thing you know, they're thrown off the team. I've seen guys throw that away. So, but you will hear other people now repeating what Scar just said about NIL and acting right on campus. You will hear it again repeated, and they will take credit, but you heard it here first, remember.
I think it's a great point. Let's move on here, and let's talk about a team that Michigan is going to be playing coming up on October the 1st, and that is the Iowa Hawkeyes. A little bit of a preview. We've talked about them a little bit. Besides Ohio State, Scar, you had Iowa as the most dangerous game on Michigan's schedule. Iowa lost their bowl game. They lost to Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. Here, the ended up being 10-4 last year, but they did win the Western Division. They got to the Big Ten title game, but they lost 42-3 to Michigan.
Yeah, the big thing is I played in that stadium. Last time Michigan played there, we lost. If you think those things don't matter, and that was a good team that went there and lost. But Iowa has their quarterback back. They got, I think, both those kids back.
Yes, they do.
So they got a lot of good. I've got some things here about Iowa. Minter has got to do a great job because they're going to look at what we did defensively and adjust to that. Iowa will look at those things, how we took their boot pass away and some of the things McDonald did. McDonald had a great game plan. I mean, it was awesome, and the players executed it. Can we expect that again, to give that team 3 points? I do like our scheme because it is definitely ideal for stopping the Iowa stuff. Our scheme is not just for spread people like some of these other teams. That's why I really, really like our scheme. Minter's got to be good. And I guarantee you we spent some time in the spring working on Iowa because no one else on our schedule is going to run with a fullback. We won't see it all year. We got to play 12 games, and Iowa will be the only team that will have a fullback and 3 tight ends in the game and doing the things that they do. So I'm sure we worked on a little bit in the spring and a little bit in the fall. The mental challenge, 42-3, and now we're going to go there on the road. College normally you don't think about those things as so much in high school. We blew them out last time. Forget all that. Forget all of that. That score is totally irrelevant. Everything worked for us on defense, and it was a tight game early. We didn't get going until the halfback pass. And then we had we did some things in there to get, but we couldn't move the ball on that defense for a while. So this is going to be a big game, but a tough game. But again, we'll forget about that 42-3. These are college players. This isn't high school, but it's just something to talk about. Go ahead, Danny. Comment on some of the things I just talked about.
Yeah, it looks like their front seven. They got most of those guys coming back. Last year they led the nation with 25 picks. But the bad news for them is they lost 3 out of the 4 guys that were in that secondary that were making most of those interceptions. One of those corners, and he's a pretty good one, is back, but they got to replace 3 of those guys. And, they just got to change some things up offensively, fullback or not. Like, they've got a defense that you think that, the defense got them to the Big Ten championship game, but they can't move across the street on offense. And I think what you're talking about, it's one of the challenges. And I think this plays to our theme here today, things that nobody's talking about with Michigan. I think the overconfidence that everybody's patting Michigan on the back. Look, Michigan's going to be 4-0 heading into that game against Iowa. They're not going to be challenged at all in that non-conference. This is what the Michigan players are hearing. They're hearing somebody like me saying, those 3 games are going to be the 3 easiest games of the year. Those are automatic wins. They smashed Maryland on the road last year, 59-18. Like, come on. And they blew out Iowa by nearly 40 points. Look, this is it's a cakewalk. You can make a case it's a cakewalk all the way to Ohio State. Those players are hearing that. It's Harbaugh and company's job to focus them in. And I don't know how much they're going to listen. They say, we better not look past Colorado State. I don't know if the players are listening yet or not, Scar.
Yeah, I think Jim does a great job of keeping his team grounded and respecting the opponent. I think he does a really good job of that. I just think it'll be a low-scoring game. The other thing is, Denny, it's our first road game. Now, for guys like McNamara and many of that this is why you want experience. This is why you don't win with young guys. It's just same thing in basketball. You win with veterans, man. Get old, stay old. We're going to put an offense on that field, and they're not going to be fazed by that crowd. None of them will. Our new center, he played at Virginia. No one will be fazed by that crowd, which is a big factor. So even though it's our first game on the road that year, this coming up season, but our guys will be ready for it because they've dealt with it. And I played in that stadium, a long time ago, man. And Denny, I could be 1 foot from you screaming at the top of my lung and you couldn't hear me. That's how loud it was the last time I was in that stadium.
Yeah, I think that they have kept the sidelines really that close. Like, you have the bench and there's 5 feet before you're talking about the stands. When I was there, I have to think about it. I remember staying in an RV, probably early 2000s. They've renovated it since, but I was sitting in one of the end zones on like a bleachers that you would see in high school, and my feet were on the grass right under the goalposts. That's how close, you were as well. They've since renovated that, but they have kept it tight on the sidelines.
Yeah.
There.
No, they're right there. They could have literally reached up and smacked you in the back of the head. That's how close I remember them being. But I love our defensive scheme against Iowa. I keep pointing it out. I believe it. I love it. But the thing about Iowa stats, which is deceiving, Danny, they're always going to have good numbers defensively because what they do on offense is so slow and so methodical. They huddle. They're one of the only teams in the Big Ten. So there's going to be less possessions on both sides of the ball. So their defense will always have they're going to just have less possessions. They're going to have to defend because they want to huddle. They want to slow the game down. And that's what they do. But, Phil Parker is a good defensive coach. I played against him. He's an old Spartan. He replaced the legendary Norm Parker, who was a real good defensive coach there. And they get a lot of interceptions because they are a zone defensive team. They like to play zone. You see the ball, you see the quarterback. They're not playing so much man, but I like our chances because of our experience with that offense, and I like our scheme on defense. But we don't do any. One of the downsides, the first 4 games we play, they're not running much stuff Iowa runs. Those 4 games that we play to start the season are all going to be very similar to each other until we get to Iowa, which will then, again, bring out the fullback and the fullback dive and, the stuff that they want to run.
Yeah, you mentioned Parker. It reminds me, Kirk Ferentz, he's 67 years old when the season starts. I mean, there's only been Hayden Fry, Kirk Ferentz. You watch Michigan play Iowa in 1985 or those 86, those like 12-10 games, the Gillette game where he kicked a field goal at the end. There's not a lot different going on for the Iowa Hawkeyes. They're pretty much running the same stuff.
Offensively, very similar. Yeah, they're zone defense. Barry Alvarez was the founder of that Iowa defense. That was a great defensive. When I was playing, he was the defensive coordinator, and that's why it was no surprise he was able to build Wisconsin like he did. But yeah, it's the foundation is the same. Hayden Fry wanted big dudes. Their offensive line was huge, big, strapping guys, physical football. He compromised a little bit of speed. He wanted size. They were big physical guys. He wanted a physical team, and he was a good. He built Iowa. Hayden Fry did. They were nothing until he got there. And you're right. They've had two coaches in the last 40 some years.
Yeah, I thought Ferentz. I remember around this time last year they had something going on. I think it was with the strength and conditioning coach, and then they had some, just some racial things, insensitivity or whatever. It looked like that could have been it for Ferentz, but it wasn't, obviously, and he had a pretty good year getting the Hawkeyes to the West Division. What do you make of Iowa's schedule? Scar, let's look at it, and we put it up on the screen. They start out with South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits. I'm gonna guess you're gonna think that's a win, but what about the following week? Here comes Iowa State and Matt Campbell in a Kinnick Stadium. Campbell, who turned down some NFL overtures to stay in Ames. That could be a tough one. I mean, that's a losable game. You're talking about the in-state rivalry. Iowa State, that one out of the first three is going to be the most difficult without me knowing much about the Nevada Wolfpack, who is the other team that they're playing.
That South Dakota State game is not a blowout. It's a game they should win, but yeah, it's Iowa State will be tough, man. They've got those are good coaches. You're right. He was a marketable guy, Campbell. I knew his defensive coordinator was a guy that was at Michigan as a GA. I knew him way back in the day. John, I can't remember his last name. John, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. But he was a GA at Michigan, so that's why he's a real good defensive coach. That's the Iowa State coach. But they'll have a battle there. They could easily lose that game. Iowa could lose that game. That'll be, they'll have a 60% chance of winning. But Iowa State's good, and Nevada will have a new coach. There's some good players there. They lost the quarterback. They should win that game. And going to Rutgers will be tough. That's I think Rutgers is good. That's a game they could lose. They could lose that game before they we come in there. So no, South Dakota will actually run some of our stuff. That's actually a game that will help them, I think, against Michigan. I've seen South Dakota State play. They play with some of the things we do, a lot of tight ends. That game could possibly help them for the Michigan game.
Well, they do. The one difference, all of Michigan games prior to going to Iowa are at home. You see the trip to Piscataway there, so Iowa will have some experience going on the road to start things out. Michigan, it looks like Michigan's going to be in the top 10. They could be in the top 5, but a good guess would be to have Michigan around 8 or 9 in the preseason. But those first 4 games, as we mentioned, I would guess that a team or 2 or 3 would lose in the top 5 or top 7. So I think that come October 1st, that we're looking at, maybe a number 5 Michigan. And if Iowa can hold serve in those games, talking about maybe number 5 versus number 15.
Yeah, it could be. They'll be favored in the Iowa State game. They'll be favored in the Rutgers game. But those are games that, if they screw around, they could have problems. But yeah, it could be, Denny. We could be 2-5-0 undefeated teams, and that adds to the noise and the enthusiasm over there at Kinnick.
Enthusiasm. There you go. Let's see any of the rest of their stuff. They get Illinois. A little tough stretch there after they better do well going into the Michigan game, because 2 out of the next 3 games they got to host Michigan and they got to go down to Ohio State. That's going to be tough for them. That's a tough crossover there for Iowa. They get Michigan and Ohio State. Scar, what about that?
Yeah, that's one of the things. I like listening to Jerry DiNardo. Jerry recruited me a long time ago, And Jerry, he talks about the scheduling for the teams in the West. Scheduling for the teams in the West. Do you get Ohio State? Do you get Michigan? Or are you getting Indiana, Rutgers, and Maryland? That's huge. And whether coaches keep their jobs or not. So it matters. The scheduling matters big time. And look at him. He's got Ohio State and Michigan. So that's not something that you're looking for if you're in the Western Division.
No, I kind of feel like, you just look at that offense, and I know they won those games last year, but thinking about all of those turnovers they had and how they lose 3 out of 4 in their secondary. I'd like Tyler Goodson. They had an All-American center, and Linderbaum, who I think went in the first round. To me, this adds up. It'll be a tough game. It'll probably be a night game as well. And so you can't, take that game for granted and say, Michigan will win that one for sure. But a game at Rutgers later in the year, that could be tougher actually than Iowa as we sit here a couple months out.
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, the thing about Iowa, they only run a few things, and they do them really, really well on offense. And you better stop. And that's what we did last year. We did a great job of stopping their best stuff. But they're not dumb coaches at Iowa. They're going to make adjustments to what we did defensively. But we're not dumb on defense either. We're going to adjust too. We may not do the same things we did to stop them. So, that's why the Jesse Minter and how well he's going to put a game plan together. But Iowa will they just run a few things. They believe we're going to run a few things, and we're going to be really, really good at a few things. That's why they've been able to have success.
Great job, Scar. What are you doing on Thursday that's going to have you coming in today instead of on Thursday? What's going on?
Well, I got a friend of mine, his son is going to be going to the Michigan one-day camp, and I'm going to go up and just take a look at the camp. And I worked that camp for 15 years or so, but it used to be a week. I just want to go see I just want to see what the camp is like. I haven't seen it in so long. See my buddy's son's kid, and some other guys I know that are going to be up there, and just check out the camp and see how they're doing. I think they had 4 one-day camps this year, so I just want to take a peek and see what they're doing.
Take some pictures so I can put it up on the Maize and Blue Review TikTok page if you're able to do that. One other thing, you mentioned Michigan State a little bit earlier. Last week you teased that you were going down to the Polish Hall of Fame where my niece got married. I've been in the Polish Hall of Fame, walking up and down and checking out all the plaques and everything. But one of the main members there that I saw up at a podium was none other than former Michigan State head coach Mark D'Antonio. And any run-ins with Mark and any interaction with old Coach D?
I met him maybe 8-10 years ago when he was coaching at one of the practices. The high school coaches were allowed to come to one of the practices. He was very cordial, very good at the time I met him, and I went up and shook his hand and congratulated him the other day, and he remembered me from meeting him 8-10 years ago or whatever. But he was just like, I respect the guy. Okay, I respect him as a coach. Am I happy that he beat Michigan like he did? Hell no. But we had a lot to do with helping him make. We had a lot to do with making his job easy. Let's just leave it at that. Michigan did, in my opinion. But he was friendly, and it's the Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. It's over in 15 Mile in DeQuinder. It's at the Polish Cultural Center is where they have the Hall of Fame, and he was he had a lot of Spartans there. And anyway, it is what it is. He was a humble guy. He spoke nicely, and he wasn't digging in on Michigan or nothing like that. He was respectful, and I respected his speech.
Yeah, well, one day he'll probably go into the College Football Hall of Fame, and I think that'll be deserved for him with this record up in his time at East Lansing. So there you go. Well, that's the I can't even put the words together. It's the nicest things that people have said about Michigan State on this show since its start. And there you go. So, Scar, great job. We'll talk with you next week, and stay hydrated out there at camp, Yeah,
you got to stay. It's not the days of the Junction Boys where they, they don't give you any water. Who do we got here? 5 most important Wolverines for 22. You getting on that tomorrow, Denny?
That's a good tease, Scar. That's going to be the show for tomorrow. We'll look at the 5 most important Wolverines. You can think of them yourself. I'm looking at the 2 deep, and, you can only come up with 5. So which 5 would you have? Go out there. Plus, we made some predictions. First day of summer. It's on the Maize and Blue Review. And we'll see what the staff is thinking about season prediction-wise for the Wolverines. We'll also include that on tomorrow's show.
Yeah, that'll be good. You'll have some good stuff. Get people thinking, man. All right, good stuff today, Denny. Great day to be a Wolverine. Wearing the rings, baby. Rocking the rings.
There it is. Jim Scarcelli. I'm Dennis Fithian. Thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow.